And welcome back to Wall Tactics. We're here at week 3 of the Pariah Nexus, here to talk about the status of the Orks. Is it the rise of the Green Tide or the doom and gloom of the loss of the Green Tide detachment? So, guys, we're going to go over some of the Orks doing well this weekend. Honestly, War Horde has been holding it up for a little bit. We also have a little bit of tease of a fun Dread Mob list. And to round it off, we will be talking about ATC, one list in particular, that being a Cult of Speed list. So, very interesting there. Of course, we'll also look at the stats and the facts. We have enough stats to finally look at the faction versus faction and overall what Meta Monday and others have to say about the Great WAAAGH. So before I get into that, just want to give a shout out to Castlin for 50 Wall Tactic memberships. Whoa, that's very generous of you, buddy. I appreciate that. That's a huge deal for everything. We give a lot of we did some raffles, so those raffles just went out recently because we have our paint competition. So thank you for that. You being involved helps us proceed and do a lot more. So thank you very much. That was very, very generous of you. As for how the Orks are doing, we're going to be talking about the stats and the facts. So let me click the right thing because I'm over here going a little excited after that. Now, here we have Mr. Meta Monday's breakdown of the detachments. I'll go over this real quick. We have Orcs sitting at a 46% win rate, and that's this weekend. But as for our last 3 weeks win rate, we're sitting at a 42% win rate. So that's a bit more, what we expected as what we seen last week. Last week, I think it was 39. So us doing so well this weekend was good. It's a bit of low player count too, as we're going to go over real quick. So it's for Cult of Speed. There's literally only 2 players. So that number of 60% win rate's a bit skew. We're going to look at one of those lists as that guy did great. And I'm really proud of him. Then we have War Horde here with 8 players at a 55% win rate this weekend. There's a little bit more fleshed out of player count, so I could take that a bit more serious. But as for this weekend, it was at a 42% win rate. So this was the number on the left. The 55 is overall since the 3 weeks. Overall this weekend, excuse me. One on the left is 55. That's for this weekend. 42 is in the last 3 weeks. Then for this weekend, Bully Boys sitting at a 46. Glad to see there's still a bit of play left in Bully Boys. I knew people were a bit down and out about it since they like to play it, but they never got to. Don't give up on Bully Boys. There's fun ways to play. And as we've seen, a bit successful as we have 2 lists that went X and 1, X and O, with 9 players overall showing up. For Green Tide, somebody still tried to breathe some life into it, but they're sitting at a 45% win rate. Only 2 players with 5 wins and 11 losses. The Big Hunt still scratching to try to make its way to the surface. 40% win rate this weekend. 43 as of the full 3 weeks. But like I said, the Hunt is one of those you just show up and hope that you get that nice matchup that you really need. In my opinion, it's just the detachment rule really needs to be reworked, and it's only slightly. It's funny because Hobby Goblins asked me this question as for how I would change it. And in my opinion, the way I would change the Hunt is just as an incremental change, right? I don't necessarily think we need to make it as exactly like Oath where you get to pick a different unit every game. That'd be really sick, though. But I think what you really want to do with the Hunt is at least allow it for character-led units as well. That way, if people just take something that's really, death ball type of thing, but they have their Rhino on the back of the table, but they have their, Terminator brick leading in the front, we can actually still activate the Hunt and play a bit more appropriately. And then Dread Mob, like I always said, Dread Mob is the meme detachment, boys, and that's never going to stop. So we have 11 players. They actually had the most players this weekend, but they also had the worst win rate with the 38% win rate. So, hey, GW, what's going on? Death Dress get down to 95 points. What's up, dude? Like I always say, though, the Dread Mob is not only just really weird because it's kind of like a combined arms kind of army, and that's very limited to the units it can actually use and take advantage of, but it's also perfect for memeing, right? Double Stompa, right? Just doing something pretty outrageous, just running 3 Morks and 3 Gorks. Like, I have no idea how I'm going to play the mission. I'm just out here. So I don't think we should be too down and out about Orks. We do know that War Horde is just straight up powerful. Look at that 55% win rate that's hanging with all of the big dogs that are in the meta as a whole. But as for its actual performance to get to X and O, it's skill ceiling is very high, as it's a great detachment rule. But the detachments behind War Horde, which is just the straight up Ork ones, have definitely gotten weaker since Index. Therefore, it takes a bit more finesse and skill. But we'll see that the list still show out and actually look kind of similar to that. So before we go into my favorite faction versus factions, I'd like to give a shout out to the Baron of Dice, as they are the sponsors that we have right now. We actually use them for our paint competitions. We give out dice for the winners of the paint competition. So join our Discord, check them out, and check out the Baron of Dice. We have a 5% discount code in the description because nobody likes taxes. So shout out to Baron of Dice. They're also getting us our set of dice, but that is to come for the great future. I've clicked everything wrong. Don't look at that. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. All right. So back to the faction versus faction. So I'm actually looking at the date of 6/28 to 7/17. So roughly 3 weeks, we'll say, right? And this is faction versus faction. If you guys never looked at it, it's on Goonhammer. It's, takes all the games right here. You can see it's mission pack Pariah Nexus. We have 28,611 games played total of Pariah Nexus. That's valuable data. At this point, you can at least take it with a certain extent of seriousness, right? Not too much because there's still more to come, but we like to look at this every Wednesday so we can see as it progresses what it kind of looks like. And I like to look at this because knowing your predators and knowing your hard matchups is not only good for you as a casual player, so that if you're constantly getting stomped out by one of these factions that are predating on you, but it's also good for you to know if you're going to an event and also, team events like we're going to cover today a little bit, do care about this kind of thing. Knowing what they're bad at is a big factor of 40K, right? So never forget about that. Now, right here, we're going to be looking at, we have Space Wolves sitting at number 1. For the most part, that's really the Thunderwolf Stormlands Cavalry, but the Sons of Rust is starting to make an appearance. One thing I also want to talk about that people might forget if you're an Ork player is if you're, let's say, running War Horde and you run into Bjorn the Fell-Handed Dreadnought, right? He's an old school what's the firstborn, that's what we call it, firstborn Dreadnought. He actually has the Vect ability in an aura range, and he's super durable for Orks to deal with. Sitting at, I believe, T9, 2-up armor save. He has a 5-up Feel No Pain, and he halves damage. So he doesn't reduce damage like Redemptor Dreadnought, but he halves it, which is good enough for us because we're already damaged too. So even -1 damage hurts. So Bjorn the Fell-Handed to be able to Vect Orks right there in the middle means not only a Stormlance with its ability to get the initiative on Orks is very potent, but even if you play a Sons of Rust attachment, getting a little bit more thematic, you can still put Bjorn the Fell-Handed in there and start dogging people. So Orks are, struggling to deal with this. Normally, even Bully by Boys or Green Tide with direct counters or hardships with this. Fighting on death is a factor, but like we said, if you have Bjorn the Fell-Handed, you could just stick in people's face. It's kind of crazy, right? Like I know when I was looking at this first, David's like, "Hey, Bjorn's gonna mess you up." I'm like, "What?" And just, David's my cousin who runs the channel too. I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, "You will be vected from the middle of the table." I'm like, "Shut up, dude." Because everybody out on the internet was like, "It's not a big deal, bro. Your assassin isn't good. T3, he's going to die." And that's true. I'm not making fun of anybody that was saying that. But when you think about the few exceptions to that, such as Tyranids, and you'll see them on your other hard matchup right here, and Space Wolves, this is directly hard for Orks. And that's why this channel is kind of important, at least in my opinion, for you as an Ork player to know that these are your hard matchups, and that's why even though we are the exception to the rule in how we play 40K, it also is for our hard matchups. Another hard matchup right here is Drukhari. Of course, it's not too many games with this one, 26 games here with Drukhari, but they have all the tools to beat us between the anti-infantry and a boatload of Dark Lances. That means if we choose to be Dread Mob or we choose to be something elite infantry style based, whatever it may be, Drukhari has not only the reactionary movements on us, the small alarms fire, the anti-infantry plus, but a boatload of like 27 Dark Lances per list. So that's pretty potent. Flash kits will help you a bit in that, but there's still more answers we need to get about that, right? Then we have Tyranids. Tyranids got a big buff. They always just straight up had good profiles into Orks, but now just went over the top with, a bit more potency and points decreases. They have the Gene Stealer Bomb for the initiative of running at you with Gene Stealers and a Brew Lord and hitting any Ork unit in our book and just obliterating them. That's nothing new, but now it's actually a bit more likely to happen in your matchups. They have the ability to shoot you a bit better now with those Noranthropes coming back down and also getting weird abilities like having the Neural Tyrant to be able to be in there and buff them up. So, Tyranids are something that we are seeing very often at 120 games, or 18 games, sorry, to be specific. This is something that we're going to have to slowly adjust towards as Ork players, and this is why I'm looking at Dread Mob a little bit. It's just really, really hard to get trades, and our mechs are not really that powerful. Them getting the ability to choose lethals and even battle shocks, these are all just innate datasheet abilities issues and army abilities that we have that just they make us a hard counter that, right? Their monsters are cheaper than 1 unit of Beast Boss and Beast Snagga Boys, so it's hard for us to even equivalently trade a monster out, let alone anything else, right? Something I'm looking at for this specifically is shock attack gun with smasher guns could be into a little bit more interesting into that, but there's still a lot more to be looked into. Which is why I'm kind of playing Gorkanaut. Maybe we're gonna look at lists today. Don't worry. So we have Leagues of Voltan here. Leagues of Voltan, they pretty much play like Space Marines, but they can even get more volume, and they have a little bit more durability. Normally with Space Marines, you have to take their onslaught of shooting, you have to take their good combined force arms, and you're like, all right, I could deal with that. But once I get you, you're only T4. Leagues of Voltan sitting at T6. T5, weird little toughnesses and their infantry and their bikers and all this such. Their transport sitting at T10 is really freaking annoying too. So Leagues of Voltan are a matchup that's annoying, and they pretty much play like Space Marines, but they survive longer, which means they can clap back longer, and we lose momentum. One thing with that is that you just have to have tools that can play the mission and pressure them without being super valuable when it comes to getting grudge token down, right? If they drudge token your Death Killer War Trike, that's a big deal. But if they do choose not to, they're gonna have a hard time not killing them, stuff like that. Knowing what tools are better into them and not is matter, and something like Commandos or Zod will help too. Then we have Astra Militarum, another army that I think Zod or Commandos might help into, but again, they have a bunch of chaff, and we're going to be looking at the Astra Militarum today a little bit, as people did have to face them on their way up through the ranks. And things like Bulgrin, a bunch of cheap tanks, a bunch of infantry, and even durable transports is just really tough for us. We don't trade well with them. Death Guard just being great into infantry. Death Shrouds are pretty potent, and being able to stack -1, -2, or well, pretty much -2 onto you, right? They take away your weapon skill, ballistic skill, then they put Nurglings near you within 6 inches. Boom, you're now hitting on 5 with your power claws, and it sucks, right? So T-Suns, and as you can see here, guys, normally I would say straight up, and this isn't me being negative or anything, as of 3 weeks ago, Orks were like 50-50. We weren't dogging anybody really, besides maybe Greater Demons, and we weren't really getting dogged by too many people, meaning like horrible, deficient win percentages like we're seeing here with 32%. It was very much Orks were like within 3% of everybody, whether it was we were beating them up or losing to them. Here we can see I'm still going down this list, and Orks are sitting at a 42 against Thousand Sons, 42, pretty much 43 into World Eaters, 44 into Blood Angels, 44 into Tau. And then it barely starts looking a little better into Grey Knights and Necrons. And then you look at the end of the pool, and we're really just beating up Gene Stealer cards, Eldar, Adeptus Mechanicus, and then even Imperial Knights and Chaos Demons are starting to make a comeback. So there's a bunch of reasons these factions, are looking hard into us, and we just really lost our way in a lot of our tools. I think, with what we play as War Horde, we're still very powerful, and a very skilled player can still make it work. But that being said, the learning curve for Orks is already steep, and just nerfing us in this kind of way did hurt a lot of the casual players, intermediate players, and the stats and numbers just simply show it. And really, even the highest level players, shout out to Menjuric, right? They just straight up said, I'm done with Orks for now. I'm going to just go play something else. Sure, we can play the game similar to these other pressure factions, but they can just do it in such an easier way. And when you're playing 4, 5, and then you're playing 5, 6, 7 rounds, you want something that's just going to last a little longer. You know what I'm saying? Like, sorry, you'll last a little longer if you're playing something a bit more fluid or easier, as some would say, right? So we're going to start off with the first event that I want to cover this weekend, from this weekend, right, is the TGX GT in Leon Miranda, with 100 tickets being done. So out of this place, Orks actually did do quite well, as one of the lists we're going to cover today with my boy John Henry actually got second place, as we can see here. So here is John Henry's list. So let's take a quick look at it, and I'll just say right now, boys, before I go into this, yes, this is the straight up Ork archetype that I would base most competitive lists are going to look like or be based around, right, with some of the key units we're going to see in here, and I'll explain why. So we have 2 beast bosses on foot. That's because we really need some devastating wounds back again, and because you know, even volume of punches against T3, T4 infantry really will matter there. So beast bosses being able to work outside of the wall is a big factor. Sustained 6s is really great for their devastating ability. You stack critical 5s on there. You re-roll his from the beast Snagga boys data sheet ability. Then you're able to spike and put like 14 dev wounds into a monster. One way you can actually hopefully go to toe with some Tyranids, right? Then you have a triple war bosses on here, and that's because we're now going quite knob heavy since we lost mega knobs. We're a little thin on squigs, stuff like that. You're gonna see just knobs. Knobs are our one data sheet. They're kind of like a, you know, wannabe death company. You know, we can get up to strength 10 sometimes. We can put some good volume and AP on you, but we obviously have a bit more limitations. Giving them follow me lads is a big way to kind of counter that in a transport, right? So we have a big follow me lads unit. As you can see here, there's 10 mega knobs on the right. And then 2 war bosses. That's for the 2 knob units, looking like a bit more like SWAT teams is what I like to call them. And then 1 war boss Omega armor with super cyborg body. And then he only has 2 mega knobs. Sorry, there's no mega knobs alongside him. Sorry, because there's only 2 mega knobs on the list, I was going to say. And those are more likely to go with Gazgul Taraka. Then we have boss Snickrat chilling with the Lone Op so you can play the mission. As for this list, we can see we have 2 units of beast snaggas, like I said, 1 boys unit. This list was a bit fun to look at. Yeah, fun. 1 beast snagga, sorry, 1 basic boys unit, 1 flash gets unit. That's to help with the SWAT team loadout building fully out, right? Put them in the truck, put a war boss, 5 knobs, flash gets in 1 truck, go play a flank. You have a nice combined arms unit right there. 2 Gretchen units. I like 2 Gretchen units. One's obviously for farming CP, but the other one's really just a screen. You don't want to deal with 3-inch deep strikes. Orcs don't really like for anybody to get behind them. It's horrible for us to go backwards. And then 2 storm boys, followed by 3 trucks. Yes, 3 trucks. 3 trucks seems to be the key number. It seems to be the way that it is. You know, some people go for more, some people try to go for less. It just, like I said, this is the straight up orc archetype that I would say, just like our player here did with John Henry getting 2nd place at this GT. This is pretty much the exact list I would assume an orc player would take that's going to get that sort of performance. Very few exceptions that can go on here, right? Like maybe you would say you wouldn't take boys, you would take more flash kits, something simple like that. So you can have more trucks, but I mean, some more SWAT trucks. But at the same time, a boys sticky objective is actually quite great. The one thing I want to point out that's the only new kind of tech piece on here that I would say is on this list that you wouldn't see too often is the War Boss and Mega Armor with Super Cyborg Body. I do like that. It's a nice different tech piece. A lot of different armies go. I'm going to take a single character, let's say a Grey Knight Librarian, let's say a Space Wolf Terminator, just whatever, even Leagues of Voltan, little thick yelling dudes, right? Those guys still would end up being individual on lists if they can come back to life. Something like a War Boss and Mega Armor, -1 toughness, for a feel no pain, coming in from the side of the board table, even being in a truck and just Kool-Aid manning out the bottom of the side of the truck to play a flank could be quite interesting. Hard to get some trades out of him. He does suffer for very low amount of attacks. War Horde helps him a little bit, so you can hope to get a 6 here and there. But other than that, you know, it is what it is. He's just straight up there to act as a roadblock, heroic intervention, whatever he can do, and participate in the game, scoring secondaries. You know, some of them require you to stay alive. He can actually hide from the majority of guns and then do a secondary and just stand in the corner. So shout out to John Henry for this list. Let's take a look at his matchups. Now, like I always say, I think going over a player's win path is quite important. These lists are not here when we show them for you to directly copy. This is to kind of get your blood flowing. Obviously, not everybody has the same models, whatever it may be, but the structure of this list and to see what he goes into does help you get kind of a bit more context. That's way, if you're looking and building this list, you're running something similar, but you see even at the top level, you're losing to the same person he's losing to, and detachment-wise or faction-wise, you can see that there's a bit of just difficulty with the faction versus faction sometimes, right? Or you can see, hey, he overcame something that I'm having struggles with. Is my list looking similar? Does it make sense? What tools am I missing? So that's why we do this. Now, let's look at his first matchup. So as for his first matchup, we have Adeptus Mechanicus. This is one of those things where you're like, either you have a bit of knowledge on this army or you don't. And that's kind of one of the hardest things to deal with sometimes, is to say, hey, I don't know anything about this person's army and I'm playing the game. And then they tell you and they're like, well, if I stand here and I get additional AP in another turn, I get +1 to hit. And then I also have a strat to give myself a 5 up, feel no pain, but right. And I actually don't even think that's what this is, as these are the rad zone. Sorry, corpse, whatever that means. So I don't think that was even what I'm that familiar with. So we have a Tech Priest Dominus and a Tech Priest Engine Seer, a Tech Priest Manipulus, Techno-Archaeologist, and another Techno-Archaeologist. Ooh, I said a big word. All right, then we have a Skitarii Ranger. 1, 2, 3. 3 units of Skitarii Rangers and 1 Skitarii Vanguard unit, followed by 1 Scorpius Dune Rider. 3 Iron Striders with twin Cognis Las Cannons. I feel like when you're taking these just to get strat buffs and everything, maybe 2, maybe even 3, but 1 is fine for like not enough trading, I guess. Then we have 1 unit of Cataphon Destroyers. They do work, but they're kind of pricey for their chassis, right? A Onager Doomcrawler, another Onager Doomcrawler. These are actually low-key sleeper good units. Followed by Sky Stalkers, Sicilian Infiltrators, Scorpec Disintegrators, and Sicodian Dragoon with Tez Lancer. That's only one of those models, though, by the way. And then Caladius Assassin. In this sort of matchup, when you're running that basic War Horde type of list where you're just running your way up the table, there's nothing really on this list to contend the middle or even reliably contend the flank, right? You very much hope that maybe one of these last cannon chickens can get an angle on your truck and pop it, and then you can start getting some lines of fire. But with the new terrain setup, you do need some kind of infantry counter punch to kind of deal with orcs once you disembark them and hit them in War Horde, and that's not something this list has. This list very much has, I just have a bunch of decent sized durability vehicles making my way around the table and a bit of these battle line units that even a decimated unit of orcs can deal with. Like I said earlier, if you have a beast Snagga boys on the wall, your strength 6 going into these stalkers, even if they lost 4 or 5 of those boys, they're getting crumped up. And these Iron Striders, even if it's a solo beast boss after the whole unit's gone, he can punch through these guys. So it's kind of like perpetual momentum thing with the orcs and going into this matchup. Not enough to hold their ground against them, not to mention you have Gazgul, which sometimes can just say, I'm going to bully you in the middle of the table. You commit to me, and then you get counter punch because I ride that 2-up invuln to victory. So it is what it is, but I like to see it. At least Adamex kind of making an appearance. He did put up 95 points there. So I think he was familiar enough. Now we're going to look at his one and only loss, and he did lose to the person who won the event right here, Nick Gilingo, with Astro Militarum, and it's a 3-point difference game, guys. 3 points difference. So very, very good performance and output by him. And we'll take a look at this list and possibly why that could be. Now, it's loading. Give me a second. I guess I was clicking too much. Astro Militarum. You don't like it? You don't like me? We'll look at this list like that. Haha. So as for, I just want to make sure. Yeah, it is Nick. Okay. So as for Nick's list, the person who won this GT went undefeated. We have Lord Solar Leontis. That's for his orders and additional CP. Militarum Tempestus Squad. These guys are great for coming in from deep strike and then just blowing someone off the table. Tank Commander with Grand Strategist. 1, 2, 3, 4 Chimeras. Brutal. Chimeras have great defensive profiles for what transport they are, and only 70 points for 5 more points than a truck. It's just that our battle line's better, and and our units that can go inside of them are better. But there's decent ones on this list. Then we have 2 units of Atalan Rough Riders. Very good anti-infantry punching. They have these hunting lances that are pretty good. They damage 3, I believe they can get on those 2. The Steeds get the hit as well. Then he also has 3 units of Bulgrin. 2 of them being 3-man units and 1 of them being a max level unit, so of 6 models total. Like we said earlier, with what we hate with durability, with reduced damage, right here we can see these Bulgrin are a nice thick toughness 6. As we've seen in this list, though, they're carrying the big units carrying brute shields. I want to make sure they'll kind of break the shields because there's a difference in the shields. Brute shield. Okay, so they are bringing brute shields. And the brute shield gives you the 4-up invuln. And then this unit already has Wall of Muscle, which is subtract 1 damage from them. So they're sitting at 3 wounds a pop, T6, 4-up invuln, reduced damage by 1, and they have a built-in 6-up feel no pain. So we love to see that. We love to see that as Ork players. No, we actually don't. That's enough to get commitment out of us, like a reliable commitment. Like Snagga boys being at a strength 5 means you're like, oh man, normally if you were the same toughness, strength is my toughness, it'd be decent matchup. But in this case, it's not winning them on 5s. He also has 2 Lehman Russ Exterminators, which are quite proficient profiles. They're also kind of cheap, so you don't really like mind losing them too much. They're just proficient to orcs because they have autocannons. Orcs, not great armor saves, as you know. 2 Ogren squads. These guys are just cheap for 65 points with similar profiles to their counterparts. A Rapier laser destroyer, followed by 1, 2, 3 units of deep striking Tempestus Scions. I believe this was probably a KG game. We don't really know what the mission was. I think that would play a big factor into this because as durable as Bulgren are and the Ogren are, it's not like you can just disrespect orcs by by letting them walk into you and just punch you off the table. But in the same time, as the orc player, you can't let Adelan Rough Riders countercharge you on the back of also getting hit with the tanks and tank orders, the tank commander squad. Not to mention that those Bulgren squads, the 3-man units, can also go inside of these chimeras. And orcs really aren't popping transports, especially not a chimera effectively. So as we're playing the transport game, they have 1 more transport than us. They also have gun support fire, and then they have just a nice durability debuff against us with just enough offensive proficiency as Bulgren, because they're an offensive wise, they carry the mauls, and the mauls are strength 7 -1, 2 damage for 4 attacks each. So even that's good enough to punch, knobs. We'll say that if a couple of them survive, they punch back on the knobs. They can very much kill them back in return, or be Snagga boys, whatever it is. So this was definitely a very cagey game. 3 points difference, man. It could have gone anywhere. Somewhere in the secondaries, they got lost in there. Do orcs have the ability to beat this list? Yes, because at the same time, the Chimera cannot afford to get wrapped and trapped. And then just not allow them Bulgren to disembark, so he can't be so annoying to stick them in your face when you're running 10 units of boys. And you also can't allow gas to get into your Bulgren because he is at least damage 4. So even though you're reducing it by 1, gas will offset that with his 5 damage 3, and then you're kind of just hoping for 6s. So there are things we can do here. And most likely he did. So shout out to him for putting up such a good game into one of our harder matchups, as we've been saying all the time, and we've seen in the stats. So into his 3rd game after that loss, he put up another win of 98 points. As you'll see from here on out, he just puts on over 90-point victories on everybody with this straight up basic indexed War Horde list. You know what? I think the War Moss Omega armor with the Feel No Pain might have played a bit of a factor into that. I like that. So we have a Necron with Hypercrypt Legion, a Catan Shard of the Nightbringer, Emotech Stormlord, Plasmancer, Scorpec Lord, and a Technomancer, followed by 1, 2 units of Immortals, a big unit of Immortals, 1, 2, 3 units of Scarabs, followed by a Wraith Brick Death Marks, 1 unit of Flayed Ones for Infiltration, 2 Locust Destroyers, a Monolith, and then Scorpec Destroyers. As we can see here, like 1 unit of Scorpec Destroyers hates the fact that you can fight on death. Wraiths hate War Horde. The amount of volume we can put into them at the right strength and just volume of punches ones, we're like, yes, we get into T6, we'll punch you out, and then you just deal with Wraiths. So Wraiths aren't safe here. We're also precision out their characters if they give us a chance. And Necrons are one of those armies we can just kind of pressure. Hypercrypt, you do need to fill the table and not let them get behind you. And when you have Gaz on your list and be Snagga boys, you do have a chance to deal with the Nightbringer, right? You get a little bit of chip damages to them as you can. Put those guys into here. Pop Unbridled Carnage, you have Gaz's lethal within range, you re-roll the hit roll for all the Snagga boys, and you fish for those 5s and 6s so that they're lethal, and then the Beast Boss also goes off and gives him some dev wounds. Should be enough damage to usually put him away, as long as you have like a full unit hitting him, which is kind of hard to do with how little his base is. But Necrons are just one of those armies I think Orcs do moderately well into. The player's skill and familiarity with each other's lists goes a long way in that one, right? Well, I'm going to have to catch up in chat here. All right, let me do one more matchup, and then I'll catch up in chat real quick, guys, because you guys are going hot right now. You guys are going hot. I don't want to fall behind here. Then we have Grey Knights. So we have Orc going into Grey Knights. We have a Grand Master, followed by Caldo Drago, which allows them to pretty much he'll come in, give them +3 to their charge. So you're getting like 6-inch charges from these guys, so that's fun. with this one big brick of 10 Terminators, 3 units of Strike Marines, which are very valuable units. They get sticky objective, they get the scout, they get a bunch of different rules. They have the volume, they have the strength 6 to punch Ork Boys at damage 2. So they're, and still have a 2-up armor save. Inceptors, a big brick of Paladins, followed by 3 Purgation Squads. What I will say is, like, I appreciate that he tried to mix it up, but just going straight Dread Knights would have probably been better than these Purgation Squads. They're not bad by any means. Like I said, Purgation Squads are not bad. Side Cannons are dope. They're just not the volume for Orks, and they're not the right profile for Orks. I would say Paladins are the right profile for Orks. These guys ignore modifiers, so even if you're in War Horde and you're trying to get yourself hard as nails, simply not going to go. They have a volume of side cannons that do quite good work, but it is 450 points. Just keep in mind that to play against Grey Knights, you have to be familiar with their shenanigans. This is another one, just like with the Necrons, or really a lot of the Ork matchups at the moment. Your understanding of the army and what they can do really will determine how you play them and if they pretty much get you with any of their shenanigans abilities, right? If you allow Paladins to just drop into your home objective like turn 2 and your army has to turn around and try to crump them, that would suck, you know. And they might even survive a little bit, but they can clear you off your home objective. If you don't put anything in deep strike and you allow the strike squad to just be like, oh, I'll stick you this, and then just start running around the table and go into deep strike and then come in late game or, you know, turn 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, they can pressure you in return once you start kind of hoarding in one direction. Knowing their strats, that they could pick themselves up, that they can reactionary move, is very, very important for you as an Ork player, and just sticking to the mission. Like I said, though, one thing that they very much benefit from are having more Dread Knights, because Dread Knights having the strength 10, -3, ignoring cover, having flamers, do somewhat idly durable chassis and hard to get to chassis, means that you get more value for your buck against Orks. In this case, you're kind of choosing to go toe-to-toe to them in like a fair game because you're just a bunch of Space Marine bodies at the end of the day with 2-up armor saves, and Orks can deal with that. Then, and I'm sure, like we know, John Henry is just pretty much good. So before we get into his 5th matchup, and like we said, against Grey Knights, he put a 97-point win. So great job by him there. And before we get into his next list, let me take a look at what the chat has to say, because I don't want to get left behind. He says, "Wow, folks and boss, I bought that Esther Millen versus Commandos book you rented bended. Ooh, that's what I'm talking about. Tell me how it goes, dude. I actually really like that list. That book. It's a very, very good book. It's called Catachan Jungle Fighters, for you guys that don't know what he's talking about. Very good book about Blood X's versus Catachans. Brian, I'm hoping this means Cult of Speed crowds starts popping up a bit more now. Yeah, we kind of got an archetype, and you can actually watch the Cult of Speed game on War Games Live. He was on War Games Live, so you can kind of see how it works. Similar to Wolf Jail, right? And Hamdog, yeah, Bjorn goes crazy. Gatsu, how do you win against Tyranids? They're very much more common. Yeah, Tyranids are good timing comparing to Tyranids to Orks. Yeah, Tyranids beating Orks is knowing how to move block them and also how to kill them in efficient point costs. And hopefully you also don't fail battle shocks all over the place. Yeah, Voltan is pretty hard. We used to deal with them. He says, I feel like Zod. He said, I feel like Mandos and Zod will counter LVO's battle plan. LVO's what? He resent that demon stat. That's funny. Tell me what you mean by that, Kevin. I can't blame them. Orks took a nerf hammer. Then we have full throttle with them warbackers and copters. And that's what I like to see. I'm not going to go too deep into that list yet, but what I will say is it did play different than I think people say, right? Or assumed. And to an extent, right? We all know that it's more about board control, but you know, you can actually see how he played it correctly in videos. I'll say before I keep going. Oh, and then Annick says the Ork player was me. Sorry, I'm behind on the video. You were the Ork player, the John Henry, because I think we're gonna go over another Ork player. So I'm assuming you're John Henry. So shout out to John Henry with this Arcani. There we go, Arcani with that's awesome Ork picture. Shout out to you, Git. That was a great showing. Let me see what you would do. Boys. What do you think is the minimum boys and snaggas you would need to deal with a good wall with Green Tide? Need to deal a good wall with how many boys do you need for Green Tide? At the current one, I think you're probably at least maybe 80, with 3 of them being bricks fully whipped out with the kits, and then the other ones being maybe like 10-man units or something. You could go just full bore and just go 120 also. But you know, I haven't been playing with Green Tide as much right now. It's also just tedious to move that much bodies and stuff over like 5 rounds, like 5 games. Then we got a 20 euro super chat. Whoa! Let's see. He goes, I'm having my first game of 1K Dread Mob soon, like a rocket's fly. Lots of work to paint. Whoa! That's awesome, dude. I'm really happy for that. You should share with in our Discord what your list is, because Dread Mob is one of those niche ones, dude, where you could just be going full tilt. Like, I have 1,000 points and I have the Gork and the Mork on my list, and then all Grats. And then I'm like, that's a cool list, but you're gonna kind of have a hard time. Or maybe you're just gonna win by the hard skew. So shout out to Dread Mob, dude. I love playing Dread Mob. I think that's perfectly what my thing is going. Oh, he says he has it right here. It's Def Dreads, Cans, Boys. Nice. Hopefully you do good with that. And then he says, really good. We fought against Cal. My buddy plays Wonka. And then Dread Mob, 18 Def Coptas. Oh, 18 Def Coptas and a Dread Mob? That'd be funny. I don't know if that goes there. I think they should stay in the Cult of Speed. Now, as for his 5th matchup, we have Chaos Demons. So Bellicor, the great unclean one with the endless gift for his feel no pain of a 4+. Shalaxi Hellbane, who likes to slap, and Scarbrand, followed by 1 unit of small Nurglings, a big unit of Nurglings, a unit of Plague Bears, Blood Crushers, Flamer, Flush Hounds. Blood Crushers are freaking awesome. I just want to say that right now as an Orc player, Orc players, if you ever see Blood Crushers, just know you got to kill them, and they have their profiles. Look them up. They do mortal wounds or nice toughness, good damage output, really big bases, hard to maneuver, but demons can like come within 3, come within 6, come within 9, and then they can charge when they're within 6. So they're just somebody you kind of have to pay attention to. For this list, it really just comes down to, do you have Beast Snagga boys with the Beast Boss? If you do, especially with gas, you can straight up punch out this Great Unclean One or Bellicor. Great Unclean One, you know what? Honestly, I said that wrong. When he has the 4 at Feel No Pain, I ignore him. When I mean I ignore him is I literally will just put stuff around him. Like if he tries to move through buildings, you know, put a truck in front of him, put a truck behind him. There you go. Just kind of chill there for a little bit, dude, while I go kill everything else. Okay, here I'm going to put some flash kits in front of you, some storm boys behind you. Just stand here while I go do something else. And then you come back at the end when you've beat the crap out of everything else, and then you kill him at the end. But as for that, that's really how you would deal with it. You would use your screens reliably as an Orc player, not commit too much early, and then just really try to get a good counter punch on them. They do have shenanigans. Bellicor won't matter here, and he should go down. You know, Gaz can't reliably kill him, but Gaz could kill him in a 1v1. All these monsters, well, not all, 3 of these monsters fight respectively. The Great Unclean One can fight like, you know, Beast Snagga boys if you leave him, but he might not even kill them all, to be honest. So other than that, you just have to worry about the Blood Crushers. Very good defensive and offensive profiles. There's just straight volume and damage too. You want to get into them. So shout out to this demons list. Not bad at all. Love to see it. You have to be familiar with demons, and Orcs just kind of overall do well into them unless you're playing against Kevin. Then you have the final matchup. You have Space Marines with the Dark Angels Gladius Task Force. What are we going to see here, guys? What are we going to see here? Take a guess. Ready? 1, 2. Let's see. Apothecary Biologist. For Final Discipline, Azrael, because, of course, he's in Gladius. 1 Tech Marine, followed by 1 unit of Assault Intercessors. 1, 2, 3 unit of Assault Intercessors with jump packs. 1, 2, 3 units of Deathwing Knight. I see this guy as a very skilled player. Very high level right here. And I am a little bit joking, guys. Then we have 1 unit of Eradicators, followed by 1 Gladiator Reaper, 1 Infiltrator, a Repulsor, and a Caladius Assassin. So welcome to the new Bully Boys. No, I'm just kidding. Deathwing Knights aren't Bully Boys because they don't really pressure the same way, but at the same time, they kind of can, because they can advance in charge, do a bunch of different shenanigans, and they can get Lance. They're very durable, blah blah blah. So they're a bit fun. You do have to be very aware of Deathwing Knights. We've talked about them a few times on the channel. Of course, damage reduction is something we hate to see. 2-up armor saves are something we hate to see. But these guys are able to be killed because they are limited to like 5-man squads. So take it for what it is. They do punch pretty good with those Maces of Absolution. This is just a very good combined army. You can see you have Azrael, so he can be stuck with some kind of shooting army, just like this Apothecary Biologist. You can go ahead and put him with Most likely, maybe those Eradicators seem to be the most likely suspect of him. And then just good tank support. So this is a good, well-rounded Space Marine list. No matter what the stats say about Space Marines, if you know a good Space Marine player that's playing Gladius, he can make it work. Space Marines have solid rules and solid abilities. But at the same time, Orks kind of do well into all of them. Because like I always say, at the end of the day, they are just T4 bodies. Sorry, just make sure I click that up so I didn't mess it. So shout out to John Henry, put up a nice fat 98 against that Deathwing list. You know, having knowledge of how those Terminators are going to work and then having the ability to work around them, you know, play the mission, score, not overcommit to get table too early, and then jump stuff as you can, especially if you stage on the wall and you're like, all right, I'm going to kill just this enough of your army and then leave that last unit of Deathwing Knights alone to go stand on that objective. It's kind of one of the plays you play there, right? They're just get into their backfield very quickly to start touching those tanks. So shout out to John Henry for getting doing so well at this event, going 5-1, really making a great showing for the Orks. Now, the next list I want to go over is a bit more of a meme-ish, a bit more of a fun list, but I just felt like I had to bring this to the world because my Git did great, and he did great with an off-the-wall list. So right here we have Brandon Deemer. And remember, this is a straight-up big, legit event, you guys, with 6 games. So let's see what our boy's list is. Whoops, our boy Brandon's list. Brandon's list is a Dread Mob. Now, for this Dread Mob list, he kept it nice and simple. He has 3 mechs. 1 is the Warlord, 2 units of minimum size Gretchen, 2 Boomdaka Snazwagons, which I actually really like seeing those on a list. Different use for buggies. You know, everybody can kind of appreciate that. 1 Death Dread with big shooters and 2 Dreadclaws. I love that he didn't really care. He was just like, whatever, Death Dread's here to just get attention and die. A Gorkanaut, a Met Gun because he had 50 points left over, and a Bubba Chukka is super fun. And then a Morkanaut, followed by just a simple Stompa. So yes, Brandon bought a Stompa to a 6-round event and went 4-2. He is living your dream. And then 1 Storm Boys unit. So shout out to Brandon. Let's take a look at real quick at what he went into. Of course, there's not a ton of depth into this because it is straight up a Stompa, which to a certain extent is a stat check. But let's take a look at some of the things he was able to overcome and lose to. And we'll do this one quick because I actually still have 2 more lists to go over. So as for his first matchup, he went into Tyranids. So people were asking what's going on with Tyranids. Playing Dread Mob or specifically playing a Stompa helps you deal with the Dread Tyranids, okay? We have a Hive Tyrant, Neural Tyrant, the Swarm Lord, followed by Termagants, Biovore, Exocrine, Neural Lictor, Norn Assimilator, Norn Emissary, Psychophage, Ripper Swarm, Tyrant Guard, and Zoanthropes. So I'm sure this person was feeling a bit thick, you know, with the Norm Emissary and a Norm Assimilator, right? He's like, playing Tyranids. I got my Swarm Lord, got my Hive Tyrant on foot. Let's go. I'm feeling pretty awesome here. And then he has his own Zoanthropes. He like I could pop some transports. This was very much a Tyranid had 1 shot here. His 1 shot is I have to get all of my damage between my Exocrine, my Norn Emissary, not even the Norn Emissary because he has to stand there. Pretty much my Zoanthropes, and my Exocrine after 1 shot. That Stompa, or he's just straight killing me. And here's the thing: they wouldn't unless they get lethal wounds, most likely. They wouldn't be able to just straight up kill him like that. Making him fail a battle shock test so the army can get +1 to wound to them would greatly help. But if he passes, considering he has his own aura of +1 leadership, he might have been okay on even taking battle shock tests. Not to mention, in return, something like a Norn Emissary or Norn Assimilator are still getting 100% shot off the table by a Stompa. Not to mention, you have a Gorkanaut and a Morkanaut running around the table on that list. You're punching them out with damage 6. It feels really good. That kind of matchup would be a dream when you're playing a Stompa, just to be honest. And shout out to him for crumping Tyranids because they deserve it. And then we have his second matchup, which is one of the games he lost, which wouldn't surprise anybody considering it's Blood Angels, Sons of Sanguinius. So we have a captain with the jump pack with Artisan of War, Mr. Lemartis, who's just a great profile. Sanguinary Priest on jump pack, Sanguinary Priest on jump pack because Final Feel No Pains are super addictive. 1, 2, 3 units of Assault Intercessors, followed by 1 Ball Predator, a big unit of Death Company Marines with jump packs, another big unit of Death Company with jump packs. Oh, sorry, 2. Sorry, wrong. 1 big unit of Death Company Marines with jump pack, and then 2 Death Companies with jump packs with 5-man units. Infiltrator, Scout, Vanguard veterans with jump packs, another Vanguard veteran with jump packs. These are the guys that get the sanguinary priest. The other characters go with the Death Company's jetpack guys. Those guys are the suicidal missiles. These guys are the ones who are meant to survive. And also still do great damage. The real trick here is that you can pretty much feed one of these jetpack units to stage, run at either Gorkanaut, Morkanaut, get Lance being at strength 8, and just straight up punching out with minus, with his damage too. Good chance of doing that. Even an Infernal Pistol feels kind of good. Assault Intercessors can run in, do mortal wounds with their actual data sheet ability. You could throw a grenade to chip them down and then have your unit punch them out. Of course, you're only getting up to strength 6, which in this case doesn't really work. But volume of fire still helps. Volume of punches still works. So not surprised. You can just stage against those kind of big 3 Titanic guys and jump out and punch them to death, which is most likely what happened. And Hamdog said, Sanko's secret, the anti-tank, anti-Tyranid meta, tech meta confirmed? Yes. If you're playing with Tyranid players, bring your Stompa, and they would feel bad, to be honest. Yeah, pretty much. So then we have the third matchup is Adeptus Mechanicus. So imagine Belisarius calls just sitting there like, so I have these great tech plans, and then I have, what is that? Is that a big human in a skirt? So imagine just being an AdMech player and seeing a Stompa just like, look at this effigies I have brought to the table that is making a mockery of your gods, and then you just destroy them. So we have Skitarii Marshal, a Tech Priest Manipulus, 1-2 Rangers, a Vanguard, 1-2 Vanguard, 2 Dune Riders. Here we go. Oh, he only has 2 twin las cannons and 1 auto cannon. These are respectable because they reroll wounds into the Stompa, but that's just not enough to kill him. We have a Doom Crawler, the Sterilizers, Sulphurous Hounds, a bit pricey, but Sulphurous Hounds are pretty cool. They have like flamers and their cavalry. Infiltrators, Rust Stalkers, pretty good for like little skirmishes. Pretty expensive though for 150 points, but they do have 2 wounds each, I guess, and they're pretty fast. Scorpius Disintegrator, Inquisitorial Henchman. As you can see, an army of T12 and up with, being able to have one of them has the Death Storm Cannon and a bunch of flamers and sweeping punches. It's only -1 AP, but that works fine into this army. Is just not having enough to deal with this. Shout out to Adeptus Mechanicus for getting walked over by the Orcs because he put up 100 nasty. Then we have his fourth matchup, which is another loss, and he did deal with the Tau, which not surprising, right? There's kind of some of those matchups where you're going to have a hard time if you're bringing big zombie stuff, and Tau is one of them. So we have Fireblade, Condre Fireblades, 1, 2, 3, followed by a commander in a battle suit. 1, 2, 3 Breachers, which are excellent infantry. 1, 2, 3 Pathfinders, because you really need to put a marker on some gets. Followed by 2 units of minimum stealth troops suits. These guys are good infiltrators, kind of positioning around the table, move blocking pressure units on the side flank lanes, or even just scoring secondaries. 2 units of Vespids, which is their version of jetpack gets. And then a Crisis Sunforged battle suit, triple Hammerheads, all with accelerator burst cannons, and then triple Devilfish, which are very, very good transports. Even expensive, but they have good offensive potential and defensive potential, a dumb amount of wounds. But what I wanted to show you real quick here is the Hammerhead gunship. So you can see it does have a rail cannon, but that player didn't bring them, as we just seen. He brought the Ion Cannon, which is 6d6 plus 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, minus strength 8, -2, flat 3 damage. Each time this monster makes a hit against a monster vehicle, add 1 to the hit roll. So he's hitting on 3s natively. He can re-roll one of the shots or re-roll one of the wounds. And yeah. And then he has the ability to, sorry, I'm making sure I'm missing something here. Yeah, you can replace with Ion Cannon. Make sure I'm missing something. For the detachment rule, if you're not familiar with Town, because you don't have toxic players, I'm just kidding, tell players. He pretty much, they get all assault ability, but then if you hit something with guided, like we see from those Pathfinders, now you have lethal. You would really, especially against the Stompa, want to counter that with this strat of pinpoint counter offensive. 1 Tau unit from your army that was just destroyed can use this stratagem, even though it's destroyed, until the end of the battle. Each time a Tau unit from your army makes an attack against the enemy unit that's just destroyed your unit, you can reroll the whole hit roll. So pretty much Stompa kills one thing, which it's going to kill one thing no matter what. At that point, now all of Tau gets to reroll the whole hit roll. And if they're smart, they're going to, of course, be fishing for lethals, which is what they're going to get once they put a nice spotting marker on your Stompa. And then in that case, they just stack all the other offensive abilities from the other units and hopefully blow your Stompa off the table if they get a chance. Or if they really don't feel like they can kill your Stompa, they can even, you know, if you go take a flank with your Morkanaut or Gorkanaut, they can shoot those guys away too. But most of the time, they're going to shoot your Stompa away right away and then try to slowly dwindle down the rest of your guys. If your Stompa can survive with a couple wounds and get 2 firing phases off, you can win the matchup, I think. But, you know, if he doesn't, then you're gone. Of course, they can do focus fire here, which is they get another armor penetration. So for the first 3 battle rounds, which is where the Stompa matters most, you can go crazy and get killed by this kind of, you know, combination of hammerheads and everything else on that list. So that wouldn't surprise anybody. Just wanted to give that another shout out. So you kind of have an idea of what is actually capable of killing a Stompa. Because it can happen. And, you know, it's very much a stat check kind of list, army. So that was his 5th matchup. And then as for his 6th matchup, right, I did that correctly, right? Make sure I messed that up. Yeah, no, make sure I messed that up. Oh, wait, did I lie? Did I lie? Did I lie? No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Okay, sorry. It was his 4th matchup that he lost, and it was against Tau. Okay, sorry, guys. A lot of your games in that one. Yes, okay. I was like, I did my homework on this. I swear. Like I said, so in his 5th matchup, after he lost to Tau, he went into everybody's favorite screaming monks, the Sisters of. Oops, I lied. Damning. Why am I lying again? Did I say Sisters? Yeah, that's the guy. Making sure I didn't mess that up. Yeah. I don't know why I said Sister. Sorry, guys. He went into Eldari, which is even better. So you had Artark Wayleaper, and the Avatar of Cain. Dude, imagine the Avatar of Cain's face when he sees the Stompa. Just straight up annihilating the Avatar. Death Jester, Farseer, Fugan, getting back up, Spearseer, Warlock, definitely going to be an MSU list. Guardian Defenders, a Falcon, some Howling Banshees, Shroud Runner, Scorpions, Swooping Hawks, Warp Spider, and then a Wraithguard Brick. This is just bad matchup for the Eldar. You know, they're trying to have a lot of stuff. They're trying to actually play the tough game with the Avatar and the Wraithguard. Of course, the Wraith cannons can go off and kill something like a Morkanaut, Gorkanaut. Even, you know, put a threat to a Stompa. But getting close enough and then also being able to get off on it is one thing before you're just getting dwindled off the table and killed and shot to pieces by all the Ork firepower. And really, you can't let a Gorkanaut, Morkanaut just straight up walk towards you. So you're going to expose yourself as they run towards you. And then at that point, you know, the Stompa can really go off. So I really love to see that. Like his list said, the Eldar list was just 2 tough blobs, as he called it, and it wasn't tough enough. And then as for Brandon's last matchup, he put 100 points up into this get. It was against Robert Musty, which might be a real name, might be a fake name. I don't know, but I love it. He went into Death Guard. And we've seen this several times where Stompa actually works against Death Guard because they're very slow. And they don't have the long-range firepower to deal with you. So 2 Biologist Purifiers, a Death Guard Chaos Lord, Foul Blightsworn, Lord of Virulence, Malignant Plague Caster, Tallyman Typhus, 1-2 bricks of Plague Marines, followed by 2 5-man units of Plague Marines, triple Rhinos, Cultists, Death Route Terminators, 3 Float Blowns, and Nurglings. He's very much just hiding until you expose yourself, and then he's getting annihilated. You know, the infantry is really good against our infantry, being able to stack the -1, -2 to hit. Yeah, being Dreadbomb means you can actually counter this, getting reroll hits, even if they stealth you, or smoke screen, essentially. You know, Lord of Flies is one of their strats. Even if they use that against you and they try to hopefully get you in contagion range, it's simply not enough for their offensive output. They're really banking on lethals in this, and they don't have a ton of AP. There are ways they can get more, but it's usually simply not enough for one side of the table to deal with something that's straight up Titanic, like Gorkanauts, Morkanauts, and then a Stompa on top of that. So Brandon Deemer played the dream list of all you gets. He went all the way with the Dread Mob, going 4-2, using his Stompa to find victory, to find success in a very competitive meta out there. Now, we're going to move on to our 3rd list. And with that being said, I'm going to take a look at chat real quick, as I actually have the 3rd list on screen. So he said he has his list. He said, I'm very good. I'm really happy to know Cult of Speed is still good. He said, big shooter with the Dread Mob does work. I run 4 big shooters and pick lethal into higher toughness targets. That's pretty cool. Good volume there. I think I like the flamers a little more, but I can understand the big shooters. I just, you know, it's whatever you plan to. If people have a good armor save, you don't really love it. And then Mr. 2 is forgetting where he's at. And then we got a whoa from Ms. Gomez. All right. So for the third list that we're actually going to go over today, we have my boy, Brian. Wait, make sure I don't mess this up. Brian Brooks. So Brian Brooks went 4-2 in an event with a different version of War Horde. Let's say you're not looking to play, you know, exactly the same thing, and you don't want to run gas. Let's say you just don't feel like running gas, and maybe you're a little bit more tech towards beast Snagga stuff. Well, here's a list for you. I wanted to show this because yes, he didn't go maybe 5-1 or undefeated. 4-2 is highly respectable, and a lot of people can probably relate to this list design, as you know, he has the theme of the squig back in town. So, as for Brian Brooks' list, we have 2 beast bosses on foot, which is pretty much a staple in a proper War Horde list. Death Killer War Trike instead of a War Boss and Mega Armor with the Feel No Pain. Mazrog Scrag Bag, followed by a War Boss with Follow Me Lads and a weird but normal War Boss. Sorry, I was about to say weird boy. 2 units of Beast Snagga Boys, of course, for the War Boss, the Beast Bosses. 2 units of boys, and these boys are actually for both of the war bosses. There are no knobs on this list, therefore the boys are just for the knob. The war bosses just for the boys. Makes them a potent cheap battle line unit. It's a very potent battle line unit at that point, right? They're going to really punch something on an objective and stick it after. A battle wagon with all the fixins. So he has a death roller, a cannon, lava, and a hard case. 2 units of Gretchen, followed by 2 kill rigs, right? So that's 3 thick transports on this list, all carrying bricks of killing stuff, right? You're putting both of those units of boys in the battle wagon most likely, and then you're running 1 kill rig up each flank, hypothetically, then follow the Squig Hog Boys wherever they want to go. So this is very much, I just flood the table with thickness and run at you and hopefully kill you. And because he does have a big unit of Squig Hog Boys here to run alongside Mazrog Scrag Bag and a War Biker unit being a nice thick War Biker unit. I personally, you know, suggest breaking that War Biker unit into 2 smaller units. Even a 3-man unit kind of has enough of blade and wounds and durability to get the most out of that Feel No Pain, and it gives you more stuff to kind of play in the game with. And this is already pretty elite as this list you would see, right? But I can imagine this being quite fun. I don't think it's the most optimized version of War Horde, but I think it's very much a very good version of War Horde and a very much relatable version of War Horde because a lot of people already invested into this kind of design and archetype. And then we have a super chat from Murder Mouth. Thoughts on Kill Wagon plus 2 MSU units of flash kits, a little mech, plus a strength 4 shooty death dread centerpiece, ambush convoy, or midfield. I get it. So what he's trying to do is pretty much put the wagon to get the +1 to hit with the firing deck on the side. That way the flash kits can get off on that. That means the flash kits profile would be hitting on 4s now. Of course, you don't get the additional shot. You don't get the ability to pop lethal, but you still do keep the sustain. So you get a good volume on that. I think it's it's a fun, solid thing. And of course, strength 9 on the shooty dread. Are you saying for the rockets or for the custom booster blasters, custom mega blasters? So I'm totally fine with the custom mega blaster. You're just likely to blow yourself up if you do that. And I think with the kill wagon, with the kill rig, it's kind of fun. It's a different way to play. I don't know if I really recommend it fully, but you'll definitely have some games where it feels really good. Like I'd say power armor 2 wound models will feel really good. So I don't think anything's bad about it. It just seems like a lot of with potential. And the baby mech kind of doesn't have anything to do anymore once the flash kits get out and start punching, which is more like what the flash kits are trying to do. They're trying to do a combined arms kind of thing where they want to get out, pop lethal, and then go punch something. The mech's just kind of hanging out with the battle wagon after that, and then the battle wagon wants to go punch too. So then the mech's like, I'm gonna hide behind this wall. I mean, I guess, but just not my cup of tea. I don't think it's bad though. We've seen it in other older states. So for the Brian list, let's take a look at his win path, as he still did quite solid. He got 16 at the Yeehaw GT. So the Yeehaw GT, we have him going to his first matchup. He had to deal with Imperial Knights, and of course he calling it Canis Rex and friends. Yeah, Canis Rex is everywhere, and he's such a great ally and everybody's favorite list, right? So Canis Rex followed by Knight Crusader, Knight Errant. So this is a triple big knight list. I'd say automatically not the most proficient. You can drop this Knight Crusader and then bring like 3 or 4 more baby knights. I think that'd be a bit more potent. We have 1, 2 auto cannon versions, and then 2 units of the Warglaives, followed by an Avusaur Assassin. I think, you know, for the most part, this is not an easy matchup by any means, but the fact that you're in your transports, knights are really trying to pop you, you can run out and just punch into them, means you do have a really, really good state of play here, because it would take something like Canis Rex just freely getting shots on your squigs to kill them effectively, and then these other guys aren't killing them effectively. If you start popping, you know, I will want to say though, Thermal Cannon's pretty potent too, don't get me wrong, with the Knight Errant. But you could just straight up whiff as well. -1 to wound. Of course, they can get +1 hit, but that's only on the nearest target. So then you can kind of counter that by putting something a little head to Squig Hog Boys, and then they can't get +1 hit on them. And Knights, when they just don't have enough bodies of little stuff, means Orcs can get to them by terrain jumping and hopping. So it is a, you know, losable matchup, but if you're a highly proficient Orc player, you can overcome it sometimes. And especially if the Knight player is not familiar with Orcs and our ability to just straight eat them with infantry. Then his second matchup, he did go pretty close on time, but he did overcome this. It was the Black Templar. So they were playing KG, looking at that score. So you had an Ancient Terminator, High Marshal Helbrick, Judiciar, Lieutenant Combi Weapons, and the Emperor's Children. Of course, we have 1, 2, 3 Assault Intercessors with jump packs. We've seen that in like every Blood Angels, every version of Space Marine we've seen so far. Land Raider with Godhammer las cannons. 1, 2, 3 units of Primary Sword Brethren. Everybody knows what they could do for the most part. Lightning Claws, then get up to damage 2 with Twin Link. That's amazing. And then 1 big brick of Terminators with Assault Squads. War Horde can deal with that. Of course, you do have to, you know, I would say this is like, you hope your kill rig kind of gets off here and gets some of those guys get down with that last cannon, because you are lacking AP on this list that we've seen. Typically, something like Knobs or Gas would be the best counter to the Terminator Assault Squad. So I can see why this list was playing very, very cagey. Another thing is there's not real transports on this list besides that 1 Land Raider. So a lot of these units are out in the open, which means they're susceptible to being also charged by War Horde with our strats to make our mobility better. So very close game, but he ended up coming out with that one, just 56 win rate. Then he ended up losing his third game. Pretty hard loss, but it was into Death Guard. Like we said, you can stack -2 to hits with a -1 ballistic skill, weapon skill, and then Nurglings. But on this list, there wasn't all Nurglings. So either way, it's still kind of hard hitting on 4s. Not to mention they can reduce damage. So we have Death Company with Chaos Lord and Terminator armor with Deadly Pathogen, followed by Mortarion. Mortarion hasn't been making his way around too often anymore. The meta is kind of tweaked to killing pretty durable things. But when you're not able to, Mortarion can go off. And in this case, since he's only getting punched by Orcs, he can use the ability of Disgustingly Resilient, which means you subtract 1 damage in the fight phase. So it means these are all damage 1 that are getting into him. That does apply to Devastating Wounds. So that means something like a Beast Boss is only doing damage 1. And then Morty does have a 5-up Feel No Pain at toughness 12. So if you don't have gas, which this list doesn't have gas, even on the WAAAGH getting up to strength 6, you know, you're just winning them on 6s. Of course, you can give Kill Rig, might hopefully give you lethal hits, but that's wishing on a dream. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. And then Morty can kind of just punch through a lot of the stuff that was on that list. We have a Tallyman. We have a Land Raider, which of course, because these Soul Shatter Las Cannons are something that can threaten a Kill Rig. I wouldn't say they can one-shot it, but when you add Annihilator Predator cannons on there with this Twin Las Cannon here as well, and another one with Twin Las Cannon, now we have enough potential to pop Battle Wagons and Kill Rigs. Death Shroud Terminators, which are great fighting units, big sweep attacks, anti-infantry flamers, 3 Flouted Bloatstrones, which these guys are great for spreading the contagion. They don't die too easily either. 2 units of Poxwalkers, good screening chaff garbage, and then 3 Carnivores. Carnivores have the multi-melta launchers, right? And then they also have, the Havoc multi-launchers, and then they also have the melee profile with the chain weapons. For 140 points, Orcs are having a hard time trading into something like that, right? A beast boss with beast snagger boys is 185 points. So trying to kill something like a carnivore does take you finagling, using bomb squigs, throwing a grenade, and then punching him with something, right, in order to get him down. Getting lucky with the last cannon, stuff like that. But it's very much still a difficult matchup when you're missing like the components to War Horde. Even Squig Hog Boys making them halt damage 1 going into Mortarion, there's a chance he could very much survive that now. Mazrock sometimes goes off, but he sometimes whiff. Not to mention all those weapons means the squids can get screened, and then the squid can go into a carnivore, and then Mortarion countercharges them. So there's a lot of ways that could have gone because they're 38-point win. So it was actually lost. Sorry. So very hard win game for him. Going into his 4th game, he had to deal with Astra Militarum. Like we said, Astra Militarum is pretty tough, but let's see how it's going here. We have a tank commander, armored sentinel, already getting a little off the basic. 2 Basilisks, which are actually pretty great. They can reduce your movement. Squigs will ignore that, though. Hellhound, Hydra. So instead of bringing the Chimeras for just 75 points, he wanted to bring Hellhounds, which is fine, but Chimeras are just so much better, which are serving like a similar job of like going in the middle and drawing out attention. Hydra, a Lehman Rush Demolisher, another Lehman Rush Demolisher, which are pretty awesome because Demolisher cannons are great. Exterminator one, these are the cheaper ones that you could put in the front alongside the Punisher, who's even cheaper. So these are the ones that you could just kind of hope to play mid-table. Rattling Snipers, Scout Cylinder, Wyvern. This guy's still trying to play indirect fire game. He doesn't even have enough Scout Sentinels, in my opinion, for that. He doesn't have any, which you would want to kind of help them. Hopefully, I think they get like reroll 1s or something. Even if not that, you still want the Bolgren. Bolgren are the way to play Astra Militarum at the moment. It makes some people unhappy, but it is what it is because you do very much need to hold people in place because the new terrain allows you to stage a lot better and run out and punch you. So Bolgren are a very important, vital role alongside some infantry or counter-punching unit that can deal with whatever gets stuck in too close to your gun line and your tanks. And then even if they do punch through it, then your tanks are just durable enough to kind of stand on an objective or get stuck in combat for 1 turn and then shoot it away. But in this case, he doesn't have Bolgren. So in this case, he ended up losing that matchup. I wouldn't say it's all right on Bolgren, but it does make a big difference. As for his 5th matchup, he went into the Sisters of Battle with the Bringers of Flame. So this is that everybody's worried about type of thing. With them getting their flame relatives up to strength 10. We have a Canoness with jump pack, another Canoness with jump pack, Demon Fugi, whatever her name is, I don't care. Morgan Val and Triumph Hosting Catherine. Immolator. Those are excellent dedicated transports as well because they actually have firepower. So it's pretty fun. Followed by 3 Castigators. So Castigators typically lack from their autocannons. In this case, they don't lack. And they also work pretty great into Squig Hog Boys, even with just having nice flat damage 3. A Dominion Squad, the ability to nice separate into smaller chaff units feels pretty good, and then have a bunch of units with multi-meltas. And then a Paragon Warsuit. These girls crump, very, very good. I will say that you are happy to have something like las cannons that are auto-hitting to go into them. And then a nice fat unit of Seraphim. I would say they do go pretty hard with their hand flamers in this detachment, but they're also quite pricey. So if you survive it or you get to counterpunch them, it feels really good to just beat up those little T3 bodies. Really, really nice. I would say he doesn't really have a lot of bodies on this list, which is his one weakness. Because orcs do have the potential to very much pressure emulator castigator build. We've seen it on stream in War Games Live and such, especially if the Sisters of Battle player is really scared of being touched and doesn't have anything to like put up forward, which they really don't on this list. So you're just kind of getting beat down, which I'm totally cool with, because everybody likes to beat down on the Sisters of Battle. And so then he goes into his final game, and into his final game, he takes his final loss. And it is into everybody's favorite screaming memes, the World Eaters. This is one of those matchups that you do, for one, very much have to know the rules, right? You need to know they can advance and charge. You very much need to know they can get additional movement. You need to know they can fight on death on a 4+. You need to know Anagram coming back to life and being quite annoying. You need to know they can reduce damage by 1 in combat. And you need to know about the Master of Execution with Berserker Glaive, because he's just killing you. A Blood Surge, all these things are very important for you to know how to actually deal with them. And even then, it can just be a hard day for you. So we have, if Anagram comes back alive too much. So if Anagram, Lord Avocado, and Master of Executions, 1 unit of Jackals, followed by 1 big unit of Corn Berserkers, of course, for the Master of Indirect Combat. Ruled 1 Rhino, followed by an 8-bound unit. Why I like the little 3-man unit of 8-bound is because they have that aura of reroll 1s to wound. I think it's pretty awesome. 2 big fat units of Exalted 8-bound, very durable, very punchy, and they can end up getting the trade in you and Orks. The fact that they're T6 means that even if you put your Snagga boys into them, you might just bounce. Very much takes your kill rig to kind of try to pick them up too. But speaking of kill rig, they can just straight up run into kill rigs. Then you counter punch them with your Snagga boys, and then they fight on death, and then they take the Snagga boys with you. Boom, they've got equivalent points in trade or more. So very dangerous unit right there. And then just a nice 3-man unit of Exalted 8-bound, and then this, the World Eater's Chaos Mon. I personally have had the unpleasant experience of playing against this before. It's just hilarious because these guys can get a 4-up Feel No Pain. They get OC. They're only 65 points. They still get all the abilities from the strats. They get a good volume of punches, strength, AP, and damage all into one into this nice little unit. And I believe they heal too. So these guys are just not trading for 65 points into anything Orc related for those points. At best, you can hope that like a fat unit of 10 flash gets kill them, and then you realize that's almost 3 times the point cost. So it's kind of funny how that works out. Very potent unit. I feel like if I play World Eaters, I'd play with those, or maybe even 2. So yeah, not surprised by that one, because World Eaters are sitting at like a 60% win rate right now. Nothing to be ashamed at. They're always a good fun matchup. At least you went down fighting and scrapping, and that's a good way to go down. So shout out to Brian Brooks for playing a nice Snagga heavy based list, and I think a lot of people can appreciate that, because a lot of people were really down because they always hear, man, Squig sucks, Squig costs too much, man, kill rigs suck, bro, F tier, yeah, you know, I know a lot. Trust me, it's just being good with what you play with, and then also when play path to victory, armies you play against does matter. Just taking advantage of your tools is very important, and just play what you really like to play, and you'll still find a way to have success. So just wanted to show that, because I thought it was a good way to bring everybody up that was maybe a little bit down about the Squig Hog boys and the Snagga boys as a whole. So last but certainly not least, we finally get to the Cult of Speed list. So this Cult of Speed list was at ATC, the 5-man team event. He was a member of Team Battle Brothers, which I believe they ended up winning the whole event. Actually, they did. That was a dumb thing to say. They ended up winning the event. The final round, they went against my team. I wasn't performing, but my team. So shout out to them for putting up a great game. And let's take a look at Eric Hoger's Cult of Speed list. So shout out to Eric. So on Eric's list, we have 3 Death Killer War Trikes. One of them with WAAAGH Blaster, which is great for the additional movement and consolidations. Yes, Jay, it's finally come true. You've only been saying it since last November. 18 Death Copters. Then we have a Boondocka Snazwagon for 80 points, followed by, yes, 18 Death Copters, which is great value. And, you know, we're going to talk about a little bit the shred of how this list worked, because I think it caught people off guard. Cult of Speed. I know the War Games live guy was like, what? What is this list even trying to do? So we have 2 units of Gretchen, followed by 1 unit of Commandos. Shout out to the Commandos for making an appearance almost every week for all the lists that we go over. So then we have Custom Booster Blaster, followed by a Megatrack Scrapjet. 10 Knobs with Power Claws, followed by Shock Jump Dragster. 1 unit of Warbikers, 6-man unit. Another unit of Warbikers is a 6-man unit, and then a 3-man unit of Warbikers. So those are obviously all for the Death Killer War Trikes. The Custom Booster Blaster's data sheet ability is when you hit something, they get -1 to hit. And then the Boondocka Snazwagon is if you get within 6 of it and you're not a vehicle or monster, you're -1 to hit. So it's pretty cool. He has different durability, defensive profiles into this. What I would say is this is very much trying to play kind of like Wolf Jail with less killing potential. You don't have a whole army-wide 4-up invuln, so for the most part, you're hard playing the flanks with your Death Killer War Trikes, just running up the table, jumping from terrain to terrain. You are allowing the Death Copters to take priority on position. That way they're safe. And if one of them has to be somewhat exposed, we've seen that Eric allowed one to be exposed slightly if he could, if he had to. And then he was always willing to spend that 4-up invuln, because that's the best unit point for point that you're going to get the 4-up invuln on this Cult of Speed. And then also just knowing that you can do the reactionary move and letting your opponent know. That way, every time they get close to your bikers to try to counterpunch them, or your Death Copters try to shoot them, you know, you can just, I'm going to move. I'm going to reactive move to get away from you. So those were the two biggest, most potent strats. A lot of the time when people are looking at this list, they're constantly thinking, I'm going to use sustain, I'm going to use lethal, I'm going to focus on this and this cool combination, and I have damage 3. At the end of the day, Death Copters are just very much not reliable offensive profile, no matter what anybody says. The random amount of shots, only -2 AP, so a lot of stuff still getting great cover saves. So it's very much just like, hey, I'm hoping to damage you, but really it's going to take almost 800 points to kill your 200, 300 point unit, but it's worth it. So I like to see that. And let's take a look at his map. And of course, like I want to say, he does have the knob brick. So everybody knows you need that knob brick for the actual killing potential. Let me make sure I didn't miss anything on this list when I'm looking at it, just because this was my last entry. Yeah, in case anybody was wondering, he literally does not have a transport for those knobs. Just triple checking before I said that officially. That's very much, he just put them in the middle of the table and foot slogging those knob of bricks. He just set them up and said, if you come to the mid table, when I come out, I'm punching you, and that's it. Which I think a lot of people can learn from, to be honest. Of course, if you're playing singles, you do have to worry about you having to face those pressure punching armies. But we'll see that Eric did have his own things to overcome. So let's take a look at Eric's path to victory. So here we go, Eric Huger, Team Battle Brothers. It says 132 because that was his placing out of individual players. But his team got first. So Eric right here, we can see this is ITC scoring. So these were, you know, if the really close point margins. He did get 2 draws in the beginning, an 18-point win and 9-point loss, 11-point win, the 7-point loss. So, and 10's a tie. Anything greater than a 10 is a win. Anything lower than a 10's a 9. So these are very close wins. Or right here, he actually got draws, which when you're playing teams and you're playing this kind of army, you are intended to be that kind of sponge, which he did very well, as you can see from these scores. He never really got blown out, besides, you know, the last round a little bit by my teammate. He, you know, put out less points, but he put up 18 points on one of his games. And then he kept it very, very much draw in the middle, which means he did a great job for his team, which is what he was kind of doing, right? He was playing defender, most likely. And then he was 2-month membership chat. He goes, I love and own the Boomdaka. I love to test it. I very much say you should. I like it a lot. And it at least has assault built in, so you can always shoot. Even if you're not playing Cult of Speed, you could stick them in somewhere, especially if you're playing against other melee armies and such, right? And yeah, Hamdog, the foot slogging knobs is impressive. So we have a first matchup. He went into Thousand Suns. So you guys know, Thousand Suns don't like to get pressured. They have their own shenanigan movement, but everything's pretty soft besides Magnus. And guess what? Your buggies have just enough offensive profile when it comes to killing that. A lot of the buggies are damaged too with some of their shooting. All of them are damaged too with their melee. And then, of course, you have the knob brick for punching. You know, a trike on his own can beat up Rubric Marines alongside the knob. So I love to see it. So let's take a look. We have Aramon, Infernal Master, Magnus the Red, Thousand Sun Sorcerer. Pretty obvious. Then we have Rubric Marines, just a simple 5-man, 1, 2, 3, 4 units of simple Rubric Marines, and then a Zangor. 3 Mutilex Vortex Beasts, Zangor and Lighten, Very clearly, the hard matchup here was 3 Mutilex Vortex Beasts. Very, very impressive. That he was able to kind of deal with this list, because when you're trying to play the flanks and you're running at Mutilex Vortex Beast, you very much are getting 6 of your bikers picked up, and then your trike is kind of just running around solo. You have to play a really, really cagey, and of course maybe even use your shock jump dragster to run out and kind of fill a lane so people can't get a line of fire on there. If you're able to get there before them to like cut that corner, if you're playing 4 corners, don't know the mission on that. And this might be one of those things where he really did try to actually kill at least one of those guys, because it would be worth it to even kill one of those Rubric Marines. Mutilate Vortex Beast. It could be that he just took enough of the table up and kept the guy back in jail just long enough that when the guy started getting going, as then the T-Sun player started getting going, he killed him. He just couldn't make a comeback, or maybe he did make a comeback, and that's why it ended up being a 10-10 point list, because it just wasn't a big enough victory. So shout out to him for dealing with T-Suns, because T-Suns mess orc ups a lot of the time, guys. And actually, I want to talk to Eric, because even though I did watch his game on War Games Live, me and him were trying to coordinate a interview and talk about the Cult of Speed as a whole. That way we can get someone who's actually a big advocator, but also great performer with them, instead of people who are just hoping that they're doing good but not actually putting the time in. Right? Eric clearly put the time in. So then for his second matchup, he went into Blood Angels, the Sons of Sanguinius. This is quite impressive, because you would right away think these guys have the easiest profiles to get punched away by Blood Angels. So let's take a look. We have a captain with jump pack, chaplain with jump pack, and a sanguinary priest with jump pack. One assault intercessor squad, one normal intercessor squad, one impulsor, one rhino, assault intercessors with jump pack, 1-2, followed by one unit of death company, one unit of death company with jump pack, sanguinary guard, scout squad, and then a vanguard veteran squad. Ooh, so just a little bit less of these jump pack units than would be optimal, which is very, very important, because one of these guys has to go into a warbiker unit, another warbiker unit, one for each death copy unit, and then you have all the buggies left over that deal with stuff. So buggies can actually, like, let's say a Megatrack Scrapjet does mortal wounds to sanguinary guards. Someone else can throw grenades at them. The bomb squeak from the commandos keep going to them, and or just stand in the way. Not to mention the big unit of knobs that are going to counterpunch one of these death company units is quite viable. And then just the individual buggies on their own going against some of these jump pack squads, yes, the buggy can get wrecked, but if the buggy gets the initiative, they can actually kill them as well, because they have the right profiles for that. So I very much could see this list being a very we both are being cagey, because you can reactionary move with your Cult of Speed units sometimes and get away from their charging potential, but at the same time it is a pressure-oriented list, so you still do have to walk around and play the mission and take a position to score secondaries. The one thing this Blood Angels list is just straight up lacking is there's no fire support, meaning that you can just put your screen straight up in the way to a certain extent, because it's just like one impulsor and some intercessors, right? So you can put your screens in the way, like one of your units of Grots, or like I said, the commandos and your buggies, and then countercharge or get really close with your sustain and lethal, and then your rockets. These guys all have 3-up armor saves besides the sanguinary guard. But in that case, we've seen that Eric would try his best to not allow something to get cover when he tries to kill them with his rockets. So that's very cool. Very good performance there by Eric, because Blood Angels are scary, and you would think that they would be a hard counter to your list. So great job by even making that a tied game. As for your third matchup, we have an 18-point win here. So he was just straight up all over the Sisters of Battle. That's one of the biggest things that I observed, is that if you can pressure the Sisters of Battle enough as an orc player, they don't do a great job of punching you off them. They're not really good at combined arms. They're really good at like throttling mid-table damage. So Sisters of Battle, we have a Canonist with jump pack, Morgan Fall, Triumph of St. Catherine, one unit of Sisters of Battle, Emulator, Rhino, Castigator, Dominion for those nice splitting squads. Paragon Warsuits. These guys are actually good at killing nowadays. We have 2 of those. Oh, so I said they suck at combined arms. In this case, not so much, right? And they can actually do good into vehicles. Seraphim Squad, Sisters Novitiates. Not as many meltas as you would typically see, but a little bit more punch with these Paragon Warsuit squads, right? The one thing about Sisters is they too are susceptible to the Cult of Speed's light damage. It might take a lot more points to get trades than you would want, but when you're taking enough pressure, killing just enough to retain your part of the table and play the mission, it goes a long way. And in this case, the Sister of Battle might have just been so worried about doing damage that he allowed the Cult of Speed to get all the positioning off, and getting charged early, and then he allowed him to get all the positioning off. What we did see in the War Games Live stream is that Eric literally did a round 4 wall, meaning that he was not just straight up throwing himself at people all the time. In this matchup, he might have, but he was very much always using the walls like a back pocket weapon of, I can advance and charge into you, Therefore, you might want to kill these bikers before I choose to do it with my auto 6 advance. Oh, haha, the trick was I didn't ever really care to charge you with too many of them. But my death copters are going to run out, shoot you, tag you. You try to kill me. I have a 4-up invuln, or I have a 5-up invuln and a 4-up invuln if it's the WAAAGH. Then I fall back, shoot you, and charge you again. And that usually just ends up being enough because now they're in wolf jail, because for 2 turns they were scared of you. Then on turn 3 you called the WAAAGH or you didn't, and then turn 4 you're in their face still. Then they blow the Cult of Speed player away, and then there's just not enough left, right? But in this matchup, I'm inclined that he just straight up killed enough of the sisters to take position. So that's really cool. Then for his 4th game, he went into Blood Angels again. And this one he did, I think he lost this one, right? This one he did lose by 1 point. He did lose by 1 point. So we have Captain, Chaplain, and Jump Pack, Lamarty, Sanguinor. 1, 2 units of Assault Intercessors, 1 basic Intercessor squad, followed by 2 units of Jump Pack Intercessors, 2 units of times 10 Death Companies, followed by a 5-man unit of Death Company, 2 Scout Squads. So the Scout Squads, pretty nice, right? Get in the way of the buggies, delay them, or just wait late game and then come up later and get in the way. In here, these, like I've said before, these Assault Terminator, these Assault Squad, the Assault Intercessor squads typically don't have the profile into buggies because they're only getting strength 6. Buggies are T7, but with volume attacks and or maybe Lance, it could hypothetically work. Jump Pack Intercessors being able to do mortals would help offset that, and then the Death Company's ability to punch things away. This one it was a very close game, so anybody could have won this one, like we've seen with the other one. He just slightly came out not on top on this game matchup. Could be the mission, could be whatever it may be. Maybe Ben was a little bit more familiar. Unsure about that one. Hopefully Eric can extrapolate on maybe that loss when we talk in ourselves. As for his 5th matchup, he went into Spencer, which was a tile player. This was actually on War Games Live. This is the game where we didn't see a WAAAGH until turn 4, and it really did matter. So we have Cadre Fireblade, another Fireblade, Dark Strider, 1, 2, 3 Breacher squads, followed by 2 Devil Shipfish, 2 Hammerhead gunships, a Pathfinder squad, Piranha. Piranhas are super annoying, in my opinion. They're like actually kind of tough and give you battle shock tests. It's pretty funny. 1, 2, 3 Riptide battle suits, which surprisingly he was actually able to kill. And we can watch War Games Live to see it, but he was actually able to kill these and deal with them just enough with like chip damage, tagging them, putting more stuff into them. It was actually super cool to see him actually take down these Riptides. And then 1, 2 units of battle, 3 units of battle suits, which were kind of used as roadblocks, but they just weren't good enough roadblocks. It was funny because you forget in this Cult of Speed list, he had commandos. And in this list, he really hardly did anything with commandos, but leave them in one spot like the whole game, which is something that I think more people should pay attention to. Is like, just because your commandos are there doesn't really mean you always have to move them. Sometimes I'm just taking the positioning and you moving around is enough. And he really proved that in this matchup. Because you can see it on War Games Live, I don't want to spoil it. I would say just plan the sides of the table, positioning correctly, pre-measuring, reactionary moves, and chip damaging down stuff using all the firepower you got available. Took him to the win. It was a good game all the way. And then as for his final matchup, which was into my teammate, Jordan Nash, he was going into Necron's Awakened Dynasty. So we have the Catan Shard of the Deceiver, the Nightbringer, the Silent King, Catacomb Demand Barrage, Technomancer, Immortals, Heavy Locust Destroyer, and then 2 units of Canoptic Wraiths. This list was actually quite durable, and that was one of the reasons this matchup didn't go Eric's way. As for, teammate pretty much said that Eric didn't kill anything or had a hard time killing anything. Of course, he probably killed a little bit, but had a hard time killing anything. And like I always say, if you're playing Cult of Speed and you go into a singles event, you have to expect that you might just straight up run into someone that damage checks you. And in that case, it sucks when they're still playing with 1,800 points and you have 1,000 now. So the jail works in theory, but it doesn't work if they could just straight up putting a large amount of points into you, because at that rate, you're not able to control your rate of attrition because you're not able to deal with enough of the threats. And then they're able to just kind of actually continue to score and put a big gap between you guys. So that's what we've seen here. It wasn't a huge, terrible win. I'm sure Eric still did great because Necrons aren't really known for damage, but when you're just not dying, when you're putting units into them, right? When the unit's just not dying, like the Catans or the Silent King or the Wraiths fast enough, you know, in that case, then they're totally dwindling down your resources. And that's just what ended up happening here. So shout out to Eric, though, for only having 2 official losses in his team run. And like I said before, I actually hope that he and I actually get to speak and do an interview so we can actually dive deep into the Cult of Speed and try to learn the secrets of the cult. Here's this list one more time for anybody that wants to screenshot it. So shout out to Eric. And with that being said, I just want to give some closing thoughts. So I think Orks right now are actually at a peak for creative potential. It's very fun to see Ork players going out and about, coming up with different ways to play. We see bully boys, we see dread mobs, we see cult of speeds. Even though we see the win percentages just like flying all over the place, it doesn't necessarily reflect how every individual is doing. Like I always say, Orks are a very hard skill curve army, right? They have a skill curve to themselves. They're trying to play 40k their own way. So if you're not finding success, I wouldn't say necessarily jump off Orks. I would say just try to find a different way that you also still find fun playing, because you're going to see, for the most part, very few people are going undefeated or going on really, really steep runs, but they are finding very much great success. And for the most part, you can see that they're going away from some of the stereotypes of kill rigs suck, Stompa sucks, Gorkanaut, Morkanaut suck. They're just, going away from that. We've seen people use the hunt, even though I personally think the hunt's kind of weak. People are just doing whatever they do that they love most, and they're able to find success that way. And that very much reflects their community, our faction as a whole. So keep doing your thing, guys. If you're losing heart, maybe just straight up go to play what you like. And as you're learning to become proficient with the things that are the most basic fundamental rules of 40k, such as pile-ins, consolidate, heroic interventions, when to pop strats, when to not pop strats, timing, staging, pre-measuring. When you're playing with what you love, you try harder to make it work, and therefore you work more on the fundamentals that you can actually be in control of. When you're just riding a 4-up feel no pain from bully boys, at that point you're not really learning as much. You're kind of just checking people, which makes it harder for a learning curve. So there's pros and cons to us being nerfed, and I hope everybody just feels a little bit better now. Some of these lists that we went over either reinforced your way of thinking or gave you some more creative juices to be flowing. So shout out to the Great WAAAGH, but there's always one thing to keep in mind: is don't cross a wall, because we'll knock your teeth out. Whoa!